Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Hello and welcome to Quick Shot Reviews, the dedicated movie channel for Cheap Shot Entertainment. I'm your host Luke and you are the Cheap Shot Nation, and today's video we're going to look at a little doozy from 2009. It is Orphan, directed by Jamie Colette Serra, and it is an interesting film. It's a character study of many different things, and it brings into reality a horror that befits most parents, although I'm not a parent. You know, it's a thought that could actually happen in a Damien style thought, that, you know, you will have an evil child whose intentions is to take over the world. Anyway, I'm sure all children have intentions of taking over the world, but they just can't say it because they can't talk. Anyway, let's get into the videos, do some housekeeping. Join us on social media, Instagram, Twitter and Facebook at Cheap Shot Entertainment. Make sure you go and join our friends over at Squared Circle Jobbers and our good friend Tom as well, who does a podcast, Big Boss Book Club, talking about everything from movies to video games to card games and everything else in between. If you've seen this movie, leave a comment down below. Let me know what your thoughts on it. If you want to know my thoughts on it, join us for the main part of the video. So let's go into a little bit of plot here, and we'll go straight into it. Orphan, 2009, directed by Jamie Colette Serra. A husband and wife who recently lost their baby adopt a 9-year-old girl who is not nearly as innocent as she appears from a local orphanage. Stars Vera Farmiga, know her from The Conjuring fame, and I'm not going to say the lesser known Bates Motel, but it is a good TV series if you're into your horror and you like Psycho, the original Psycho from the 60s, then then this one is very much worth watching. Peter Sarsgaard plays John, that is the dad. Of course, Vera Farmiga is the mum. Isabel Furman plays Esther, who is also the orphan. Jimmy Bennett plays Daniel, and Ariana Engineer plays Max, the young daughter of Kate and John. So after the tragic loss of their unborn child, John and Kate are absolutely devastated to the point where they are, you know, their marriage is being torn apart, their family is being torn apart. Kate's mind is very fragile. She's a teacher of music, and she is haunted by the demons of the past, and also she's an alcoholic as well. I mean, there's a lot going off in that plot alone without the other stuff as well. But yeah, the couple decides to adopt a child to see if they could fill that void, and they welcome Esther into their lives. Now, when they go to the orphanage, they're both very much drawn to Esther. She's playing music, she's painting, she's very polite, she's singing, and all these things sort of like, brings thoughts of like a banshee, come over here, play, like a Pied Piper sort of thing. You need to acknowledge who I am, and I'll draw you in with my singing. I won't, because I can't sing, but there you go. But almost as soon as they get home with Esther, the family start experiencing weird happenings, and the seemingly angelic girl is not who she appears to be. And I absolutely love Orphan. I think it's a really clever film, and you know it's quite messed up with the things that the director gets away with here. But it was, it was a distant past. It's not so distant past, rather, in 2009, where you could get away with doing things. And Orphan has the goal to actually do some things that modern horror movies would never even think about doing. The musical cue has some modern horror movie tropes, like tension building, and then whoa, there you go, make people jump out of their seats. I focused more on the psychological aspect of it. I thought the setup of Esther was really intriguing, like going to an orphanage, adopting a child, thinking you're doing something great, but there's always that thought in the back of your mind: what if this child has something wrong with them? What if? And everything seems absolutely normal. Obviously, it's going to be bad, but everything seems absolutely at the right point for the time, and it works. It really works from start to finish. You've got the shall we say the dumb dad, the character that just he says no, dismisses everything, nothing wrong. You got the mom who is very much thinking, okay, there's something not quite right here. The son gets along with Esther for the first part, or doesn't get along with Esther for the first part, and thinks there's also something wrong. Whereas the younger daughter, Max, absolutely adores her, idolizes her. It's a new idol for her to pick things up from. But I think the best part of this film is the fact that it's self-aware. It uses all of these horror tropes, then uses dark humour as well as genuinely scary and tense scenes to just build this atmosphere, build this world around everything that's going off. But the most interesting part of this film is that Max, played by Ariana Engineer, is actually hearing impaired. She does have a cochlear implant now. She was also in Resident Evil, and everything she does is absolutely genuine, and I really found that quite interesting. Same with the King Kong versus Godzilla. There was the young child who was signing to King Kong, and didn't really get explored. I would have loved that to be explored more. In this film, it was. Max never really had a role model apart from the mum, but then the mum became distant, and Esther comes in and becomes the role model for young Max. Orphan also has a running time of just over 2 hours, which in most films these days is pretty standard. But back in 2009, for a film to have a run time of over 2 hours, it's got to be confident, especially horror movies. And fortunately, this wasn't bad because there's a lot of character development. Everything that I've said about this film so far, I've just really enjoyed. I appreciate the fact that it did have character development, and all of the protagonists you wanted to stay alive. You wanted them to win. Surprisingly, like I say, there's a lot of dark humour. Jamie Collette Sarah also directed House of Wax, which is another underrated, surprisingly enjoyable horror movie slasher from the last 20 years. And he sets up everything really nicely whilst using sound to make the audience uncomfortable. Strong performances from the kids, like I've already mentioned, and they are backed up by really strong characters in Vera Farmiga and Skarsgård, and you really feel like you're sympathetic towards both of them. The score by John Ottman really lends value to this. I've already said a good score in a horror movie makes a good horror movie. You know, you can have the most dramatic, scary scenes, but without good sound, it doesn't quite work. It mixes the dark humour with the tense scenes. The child actors are really good. The adult actors are really good. And that's what sets this movie apart. Esther is just a little kid. Just a little kid from an evil kid movie gives Damien a run for his money. But with Esther, it seems like a real pity, because with Damien, there's no redeeming qualities, but with Esther, she's polite, she can paint, and she can play Tchaikovsky flawlessly. My final rating for Orphan is Adopt It. Good film, definitely worth a watch for you horror fans. That is my thoughts on Orphan. If you watched the film, let me know in the comments section down below. Let me know if you enjoyed it. Join us on social media, on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook. Don't forget to join our friends at Squared Circle Jobbers and go over to the Big Boss Book Club and listen to his podcast, looking at everything from movies to wrestling. Once again, I have been your host, Luke. You've been watching Quick Shot Reviews for Cheap Shot Entertainment. You are the Cheap Shot Nation, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.